we're kicking off with a spotlight on Mongolia. So joining me here today, I have Joe Burke, Executive Director at Jade Gas, and Andrew Stewart, CEO and Executive Director at Xanadu Mines. So thank you for joining me this morning. And I thought it would be great to just start off if each of you wanted to give a bit of an overview of your Mongolian projects and include a little bit about your background on the region. So maybe Joe, if you want to kick us off.
I'm very lucky to have to be part of a company that has been offered the rights to extract coal bed methane out of the staggering Tavan Tolgoi coal deposit in Mongolia. Tavan Tolgoi is one of the biggest and richest coking coal deposits on the planet, and it's a fundamental project, a very important project to the country. And I was very lucky to be offered an opportunity to tender to take the coal bed methane, to take the gas out of the coal at depth. Mongolia has a rich history in petroleum. About 80 years they've been extracting petroleum in Mongolia, and Australia is the leading coal bed methane country in terms of production. They are the largest LNG producer in the world. The country is the largest LNG producer in the world, and it all comes from coal seam gas. And the plan from our perspective is to educate the Mongolian market on the opportunities to become energy independent and to look at extracting gas from coal fields in Mongolia.
Andrew Stewart, and I work for Xanadu Mines, and Xanadu Mines is a copper and gold explorer. We have been quite successful over the last 5 or 6 years with a good discovery in the South Gobi, and our Hamagtai project, which is 3 million tonnes of copper, 8 million ounces of gold, is now going into the PFS stage. And in the next, I guess our aim is to get that through PFS next 18 months, but really looking at construction and first production in 27. So hoping to be one of the next copper mines in this region and Mongolia's third copper mine. So exciting times. And I think working in Mongolia, I've got a long history in Mongolia. I previously worked for Ivanhoe Mines, which was very successful with our Tolgoi discovery. Now one of the most recent tier 1 assets that have been constructed anywhere globally. And 2 weeks ago went into full production of underground, so it'll be one of the biggest underground mines in the world, and one of the biggest copper producers. So that's why we're in Mongolia, is the opportunity to find these world-class deposits.
Absolutely. And sorry, go ahead.
And we're very lucky in a different industry. Andrew's in a mining industry. I'm quite lucky in the fact that from our perspective, we need to be able to prove path to market and commercialization. And we recently signed an MOU with Xanadu to look to provide them power. They'll need to produce. They'll need to have about, I think it's about 120 megawatts of power from to run their mine, and we have sufficient power to be able to provide them that. All the power in the South Gobi is currently coming from coal-fired power stations in the northern part of China, and so all the grid that's there is all being powered by these coal-fired power stations. And Mongolia is looking to, again, like I said, to look for its own energy independence, and we're very lucky to have a project like this on our doorstep, and I wouldn't underestimate the power of this partner that Xanadu have and Zijin Mining. I mean, they're the largest mining group in the world. They're bigger than BHP, they're bigger than Rio, they're massively focused on battery minerals and cleaner energy. So it's a good fit for us as we look to see them develop their project in the South Gobi. We're just on their doorstep.
I thought we could maybe get a little bit more about those opportunities. So both of you have kind of mentioned quite kind of different opportunities that you've been able to find there, whether that's kind of based on other large deposits that have already been found, or the opportunities to kind of grow the energy sector within the country. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Well, the opportunities you've got, it's interesting. If you look at Central Asia, you've got very big gold deposits, very big copper deposits, very big other base metals that, run through Kazakhstan and through Central Asia. And they stop at the border of Mongolia and then they start again in eastern China. And, that's not a function of geology. That's just a function of the maturity of exploration in Mongolia. And there's still been very little of that exploration. So, that's the opportunity. As a junior company, you got to go where you can actually find deposits. We don't want to be drilling deep holes in parts of Australia or working at 5,000 metres in the high Andes in South America. The opportunity is to find world-class deposits in areas that are cheap to explore, easy to access. You're not dealing with thick jungle or high mountains, as I said. That's really that opportunity, and that's the opportunity to go. The ability to find those deposits. So that's what attracted us to Mongolia.
Also, there's a real desire to, and not to use a cheesy phrase of Mongolia's open for business. The new generation of people that run the country are younger and they're hungrier. They're more educated. A lot of them have been educated in the US, and there's not as much bureaucracy. I mean, if Andrew was to try and build his mine in Australia, he'd be 10 or 15 years down the line before he'd go anywhere. I mean, at least in this particular part of the country, there is a desire there. There's a mining environment, and people are very keen to develop these projects.
All right. Just a reminder to the audience, if you have any questions at any time, just put your hand up and one of my staff will come and bring a microphone over to you. So one of the big considerations for going into any kind of different country is the regulations involved and how that impacts your business. So, what are some of the unique considerations for those looking to get involved in Mongolian projects, either on the exploration or the investment side of things?
Well, in our business, you just got to, the key things is that sort of, I guess, proof of concept. You got to have tenure and have that, and you got to have the ability, if you find something, to have control and mine that. And Mongolia certainly has that. And I think Mongolia gets a little bit unfairly treated as perception of a hard place to work. But this is a country where Rio Tinto has just built the world's biggest copper mine in pretty good time. That was a discovery from 2005, commercial production 13. Today will be the world's biggest underground. At the same time, Oyu Tolgoi was discovered. You had discoveries in Arizona with Resolution, Pebble in Alaska, Riki Dik in Pakistan. None of those deposits have moved. And, I keep hearing that you should be in North America, but two of those projects are located in North America and they haven't even got through permitting yet. So, I think for us, it's about, being able to control tenure, holding that, and then being able to progress that project through development and into production, and that's an important thing.
Also, I get questions from people, sometimes potential investors, asking me, "Is Mongolia still part of China?" I mean, there's a massive ignorance on the country, but yeah, as Andrew said, I mean, the de-risking that Rio Tinto have done, especially recently in the open pit mine, in the underground mine, really shows that this country is moving ahead. I'm under Jade is under a different regulation, where Xanadu is kind of tied into the mining. We're under the petroleum law, which is slightly different. So again, it's a law that's been around for a long period of time, based on the production sharing agreements that you have with the government, and our regulator, the Mineral Resources and Petroleum Authority of Mongolia, are also learning as we partner together. How to extract gas and how the regulation is done, because it's not the same. You can spud oil and you can be producing very, very, very quickly. In gas, you need to understand flow rates, and that takes a little bit more time. So, but they are very understanding, and they're open to solutions and discussions about how we can develop the business and the industry, because they want, again, it goes back to this part of wanting to be energy independent and looking for cleaner energy in the country.
I guess, what sort of developments on that kind of move towards cleaner energy have you seen Like, is it progressing as the country would want it to?
Well, first you have to develop the gas. I mean, there's no. I mean, there's a lot of coal-fired powered reliance there, and like I mentioned in the South Gobi, they don't have coal-fired power plants to connect to the grid. So again, everything comes from coal-fired power plants in Inner Mongolia and in China. So these things take time, and they're ready, and the grid is there. It's just we just need to be able to make sure that we can pump gas into the grid.
So my last question was really looking at risk considerations. So, wanted to understand what sort of perspective do you hear, what sort of messaging do you get from investors when talking about your Mongolian projects in terms of, how do they view the risks of entering into these types of projects, and how valid do you think these concerns are?
Well, risks are, I guess, about managing them and mitigating them with your team that you have on the ground. For me, when I look at the projects, the perception is very different to reality in Mongolia. And that perception often comes around some of the larger projects that are in country and the media and so forth. But look, there's no difference anywhere else in the world. As I said, the ESG risks are quite low. In our particular project in the South Gobi, it's the most sparsely populated country in the world. There's very few people. We have power and we have water and we have a lot of these things. So if you look at the ESG risks around that, they're very minimal compared to somewhere else in the world that has high population. As I said, you might be hanging off the side of a 5,000 metre peak trying to put a tailings dam in. That's very risky. We don't have to deal with those problems. You look at our industry, if you look at a project, it's often 1/3 infrastructure, 1/3 plant, and 1/3 mining in any of these projects. If you can minimise any of those, that allows the value to be there a lot better. So as I said, building a project, we're not worried about where to put things, and we're not, worried about the environmental risks, although, you do things properly. I guess it's that ability to build things quickly. So that mitigates a lot of risks as opposed to elsewhere in the world. And people are the most, any mining project, people are the biggest risk. And if you can minimise that, you're an added advantage.
Come on, Andrew, you're wrong there. I mean, our biggest problem is the camels. Yeah. So as Andrew said, there's really nothing in this area, and having a company of Zujin's power and that to be coming into Mongolia to develop this project is fantastic, and we're you look at especially in the geopolitical scenario that we are at this particular point. I mean, these companies like Zujin, they understand exactly their neighbours and they know exactly what they need to do in this particular region. So again. They need power. We will have power, and it's just about being able to clean up the country and from the current environment of coal-fired power stations. Yeah.
All right. Well, it sounds like you guys are working quite well harmoniously together. Do we have any questions for the audience before we wrap up the panel? I guess just some final thoughts from our panelists. Opportunities, perspective on the country, and your projects as well. What's next?
Yeah, look, Mongolia. I think Rio Tinto has resoundingly said that this country is going to produce a lot of battery materials. I think there's a lot of opportunity here for more projects. Everybody always says there has to be a second OT. I mean, geology says that there should be other projects here, and hopefully, the exploration phase can come back and people will look to invest in the country. I think the newer generation of people that are running the country are certainly looking for investment from different countries. They know they can rely on China, they know they can rely on Russia, but they also. I constantly hear from regulators to say that it's great that Australian investment comes into this country because it's very important for us to have a mix in terms of investment.
I just second that, because I think when you look at Mongolia, a lot of explorations happen for copper, coal, and certain things, but we're seeing the diversity now. We know with gas, there will be lithium there, and there is nickel. There is these other commodities. There's just been no exploration for them, and so I think that's the opportunity. A broader spectrum of different commodities will be exciting for Mongolia.
Great. Sounds great. So that wraps things up. A big thank you to Joe and Andrew for taking the most difficult time slot of the day. So thank you.